let me tell you something about the South. Down here, the air thick like molasses. The bayou don't take kindly to strangers. And if someone go bunk in the night, best believe it ain't the wind. No, sir. Down here, legends walk, ghosts talk, and if you hear a tune flowing through the cypress trees, you best keep walking. And that, folks, brings us to South of Midnight. A game that asks, what if the American Deep South had a little more existential dread? Hello Kakuchopurei, my name's Lickety, and welcome to Loot or Leave It, the all-new series where we slap an unnecessarily dramatic title on what is essentially just game and tech reviews. And for this inaugural episode, we're diving headfirst into South of Midnight, the latest title from Compulsion Games, the same folks who brought us We Happy Few back in 2016, which is dawning on me was almost 10 years ago. Damn, I'm getting old. But if that game was anything to go by, we're in for something deeply unsettling. So, what exactly is South of Midnight? A dark southern gothic fairy tale? An action adventure? A slow descent into madness? Well, yes. This Xbox exclusive takes place in the fictionalized deep south town of Prospero, where folklore and reality blur together like some sort of bad fever dream. A flood tears through the town, sweeping away homes, history, and, unfortunately for our protagonist Hazel, her mother along with their trailer. Slid into Hazel's shoes, you embark on a journey to track her mother down, only to discover that there's more to Hazel than just, well, bad luck. Turns out, she's a weaver. A mystical mender of broken bonds and restless spirits. And with that revelation, her mission evolves. Not only must she find her mom, but she's now also responsible for patching up the tattered remains of Prospero itself. No pressure, right? Now, I've had my eye on this game since it was first teased at the 2023 Xbox Game Showcase. And I know I'm not the only one. Because, let's be real, the art style is fucking phenomenal. It doesn't just look good, it looks deliberately good. South of Midnight isn't going for your usual high-fidelity, hyper-realistic nonsense. No, it's emulating stop-motion animation, giving characters that slight, jerky, handcrafted movement. Like something painstakingly crafted frame by frame in a dimly lit workshop by a guy who probably listens to too much Delta Blues. It's got that storybook quality, like a bedtime tale whispered under the glow of a porch light. But don't let that fool you. This isn't some whimsical fairy tale. This is the kind of story where the monsters don't just lurk under the bed. They walk the streets, weave through the trees, and hum old folk tunes while they watch you from the dark. And that feeds perfectly into the game's tone. Make no mistake, this is not a kid's game. Sure, it might look like something out of Disney, but within the first hour, it's made abundantly clear that the bedtime stories in Prospero come with a side of trauma. Besides the occasional F-bomb dropped in casual conversation, because, let's be honest, if your entire life got washed away in a flood, you wouldn't just be saying oh gosh darn it either. The game isn't afraid to wade into murky waters. Betrayal, abuse, loss. It doesn't just hint at these themes, it drags them kicking and screaming into the spotlight, dressed in all their ugly, tragic glory. This isn't some twee, whimsical adventure where everything wraps up with a heartwarming lesson about the power of friendship. No, this is a Southern Gothic through and through, where the past never stays buried and the weight of history hangs in the air like humidity before a storm. Now earlier, I mentioned that Hazel is a weaver, and that's where Compulsion Games has really put its stamp on both the combat and the traversal. Because being a weaver isn't just about mending broken things, it's about seeing the world for what it really is. See, the universe in South of Midnight is held together by something called the Grand Tapestry, an invisible, intangible fabric that connects everything. And Hazel, as a weaver, can see what the rest of us can't. That means corruption isn't just some vague metaphor. It takes a very real and very squelchy form known as stigma. This alien-looking fungal growth that spreads like a bad rash across the land. Then you've got the hastes, grotesque entities that spawn from that corruption, shambling nightmares that exist to make your life hell. And then the strands, the literal threads binding emotion and reality together. When these threads get tangled in knots, that's when corruption takes hold. For most people, that kind of thing manifests as an unbearable weight on your chest, or that gnawing emptiness you can never quite shake. But for a weaver, that's just another mess to untangle. Hazel's job is to unravel those knots, stitch the world back together, and, if necessary, whack a few horrors in the face too. Now, in true video game fashion, all this mystical weaver business isn't just for show. it directly impacts the gameplay, and South of Midnight does something pretty clever with it. Instead of your typical magic spells and enchanted swords, weavers channel their abilities through traditional weaving instruments, tools you'd usually associate with making a sweater, not necessarily battling eldritch horrors. You'll pick up these instruments fairly quickly in the early chapters, and each one introduces a new layer to both combat and traversal. First, you've got weaving hooks, your primary weapon. Simple, effective, lets you pull off some basic combos and a chunky charge attack, but here's where it gets fun. These hooks also let you run along walls, meaning you're not just mending the fabric of reality, you're parkouring across it. Then there's the spindle, part weapon, part magic yo-yo of doom. In combat, it lets you tie down enemies, pinning them in place like a spider wrapping up a meal. Outside of combat, it gives you the ability to conjure objects into existence, because why settle for platforming the normal way when you can just weave reality into something climbable? When it comes to movement and combat, South of Midnight is about as polished as a brand new billiard ball. I don't know, it's the shiniest thing I could think of. Hazel moves with ease, her weaver abilities slot seamlessly into gameplay, and for the most part, everything feels tight. And yet, it's tame. For a game steeped in magic and folklore, you'd expect something a little bit more outrageous, wouldn't you? Imagine being handed the keys to the universe and being told, right, off you go, use them to run along walls. Like, really? That's it? Like, where's the chaos? The creativity? There's so much potential for the game to truly embrace its own madness, but instead it plays things far too safely, like a circus performer who only ever walks the tightrope 2 feet off the ground. It's good, it's fun, but you just know it could have been so much more. Now, moving on, let's get one thing straight. Boss fights are supposed to be exciting. They're supposed to be spectacles, a test of everything that you've learned so far. But in South of Midnight, they're just okay. There are 4 bosses in total, and they all follow the same formula. Multiple phases, similar animations, slightly different dialogue, rinse and repeat. It's like watching the same fast food chain play commercials 4 times in a row. Same structure, different ingredients, but it all blends together in one forgettable mush. The final boss, Kushma, is the one exception. The developers actually put some effort into changing up the phases each time, and for a brief fleeting moment, I thought, they finally figured it out. But no, it was too little too late. So, boss fights definitely aren't a standout in this game. I will commend the game on one more thing. Although I'm far from a music connoisseur, I think I know what sounds good. And let me tell you, South of Midnight sounds bloody brilliant. The soundtrack drips with deep South charm. You've got your bluesy guitar riffs, your soulful vocals, and that eerie, folklore-laden atmosphere that makes you feel like you're sitting on a porch in the bayou watching the spirits of the dead wander past. It doesn't just sound good, it sells the setting. It makes you feel the history, the weight of the land, the ghosts of the past. For a region as culturally rich as the Deep South, it's refreshing to see a game get it right instead of just slapping on a banjo and calling it a day. Right, I almost forgot to talk about the length. South of Midnight is short. Very short, in fact. If you plow through the main story, you'll be done in about 7 to 8 hours. That's a far cry from the 10 to 15 hours that was initially expected. Now, that's not bad per se. I'd rather have a well-paced game that respects my time than a bloated one filled with pointless fetch quests. It does remind me of films from the 2000s, back when movies actually ended in 2 hours instead of being stretched into 10-episode Netflix series. South of Midnight tells a story, wraps it up, and sends you on your way. No fluff, no filler, just pure storytelling. But here's the problem. Replayability is basically non-existent. Sure, you can revisit chapters, but only by overwriting your save file. And no, before you ask, there aren't multiple endings or branching choices to justify another go. So, unless you're particularly fond of watching the same cutscene with 0 variation, there's not much reason to start over. If you're the type of player who loves scouring every nook and cranny, do it on your first run, because, trust me, once the credits roll, the only thing pulling you back is sheer stubbornness. So, where does that leave us? South of Midnight is a great game. It's short, slightly repetitive, but great nonetheless. It's by no means Game of the Year. It's not rewriting the rulebook on action-adventure games, but it doesn't have to. What it does do is prove that Compulsion Games is a studio worth watching. This game exudes talent. It looks fantastic, sounds fantastic, and tells a story worth experiencing. If nothing else, South of Midnight has set a new standard for what we should expect from Compulsion Games moving forward. They've raised the bar for themselves. Now, let's see if they can clear it. But don't just take my word for it. Go, read other reviews. See what the rest of the world thinks. Maybe you'll agree with me. Maybe you'll think I've completely lost the plot. Maybe you'll stare at your screen in utter confusion, wondering why on earth you just spent money on a game where people fight sentient depression with crochet needles. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts. Are you going to buy South of Midnight? Did it pull you in with its southern gothic charm? Or did it leave you as hollow as a deep-fried alligator nugget? Let me know down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this review, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because this is just the beginning. We've got plenty more Loot or Leave It reviews coming your way, where I continue my quest to find the next great game, or something so painfully mediocre it makes me question my life choices. Thank you all ever so much for watching. My name has been Lickety from Kakuchopurei, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Ciao for now.